This is a full story. Kitten wishes you all a happy and enjoyable story. After 3 years of longing for Haley, I finally couldn't hold back and brought her home. I fastened a silver chain around her ankle, telling her she'd never escape me in this life. In the first month, she was unyielding, warning me to let her go. By the second month, she slowly started to accept it, allowing me to sleep in the same bed. In the third month, she began to push her luck, demanding to know why I was 5 minutes late today, accusing me of fooling around with some wild woman. Looking at the woman before me, toying with the silver chain and her eyes slightly red, I broke down. "Who's the real Yandere here? You're 5 minutes late again," Haley said coldly from the bed. "Rocky, your company finishes at 6. Even with traffic, it should take only 20 minutes to get home. You've been late for 3 nights in a row by 5 minutes. Are you with some wild woman?" She scoffed, her red lips forming a dangerous smile. "Don't tell me I'm about to get a roommate here." I swallowed nervously, watching her fingers twist the silver chain. She leaned forward, her long legs straddling me, looking down with a chilling smile. "Did you forget what I said yesterday? 1 minute late adds another." She wrapped the silver chain around my foot. "Maybe you're more suited to this chain than I am." I looked at her in terror, wanting to explain but found my mouth sealed tight, only able to scream in despair inside. Who the hell is the real Yandere here? 2 months ago, I did the most criminal thing in my life. I kidnapped my boss, Haley. This is the 3rd year that I have a crush on her. Before, she was my senior. After graduation, I lowered my face and begged everywhere. Finally, through internal recommendation, I entered her company. At first, I just thought it would be good to be by her side and watch her. I didn't expect her to like me, but the more I look at her, the more I want to have her. So I decided to confess to her. However, on the day I confessed to her, I happened to see her in an intimate posture with a man. There was actually a large bouquet of roses in her hand, dying before achieving victory. In a fit of anger, I had a bold and perverted idea. I will kidnap her and take her home. So, on the pretext of not feeling well, I asked her to take me home. Then, using the excuse of having a drink upstairs, I tricked her into my house. I got her drunk with a bottle of beer. By the way, Haley's alcohol tolerance is really poor. I have never seen an American with such poor alcohol tolerance. It's really a disgrace to Americans. While she was asleep, I dragged her into the bedroom. I chained her to the bed with a small thin silver chain I just bought. Then I looked at her and was in a dilemma. I really want to do some tricks, but she is dizzy now. It's useless for me to think alone. I can only wait for her to wake up. An hour later, Haley's eyelids moved and she woke up. She looked at the chain on her foot and frowned. "Rocky, are you illegally detaining me?" Looking into those dark eyes, my earlier enthusiasm turned to cold sweat, and I mustered the courage to warn her. "From now on, you can never leave me. Don't think about escaping. This chain is made of titanium alloy. Not even an elephant could get away." Haley looked at me strangely and shot straight. "Do you like me?" My face turned crimson and I stammered. "Yes, I've liked you for 3 years, but if you don't like me, fine, but you can't be with other men. I absolutely won't allow it. From now on, you'll stay here obediently." I recalled lines from the sickly sweet novels I'd read. "In your eyes, there can be only me. In your mind, only thoughts of me. Your body belongs only to me." Haley coldly replied, "Impossible. I advise you to let me go. I won't ever submit." I spat out a few harsh words and awkwardly fled the bedroom. I regretted it instantly. This was a legal detention, a crime, and Haley wasn't an easy target. She seemed like a lofty flower, but I heard she was a Taekwondo black belt and had practiced Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I once saw her take down someone who harassed her. My so-called chain wasn't titanium at all. It was just a cheap dog chain I bought, only as thick as my pinky. She could easily break it with a tug. What if she ended up beating me to death? But I really craved her. I gritted my teeth, dying under a peony. I'll be a ghost of passion. This sickly sweet girl, I was determined to keep. In the first month, Haley was as unyielding as she claimed. Every time I entered the bedroom, she would look at me with a dead stare. Whenever I tried to reach out, her gaze would send me recoiling. Several times, I sneaked into the bedroom at night, but as soon as I touched her, she'd open her eyes, the moonlight reflecting in them, like a beautiful vampire just awakening. I was startled and never dared to go back, but she didn't leave. She seemed to really believe my nonsense. The little chain holding her felt like a wooden stick tying up an elephant, truly keeping her in place. Luckily, the chain was long enough. for her to access the independent bathroom, which didn't interfere with much. I thought if hard methods didn't work, I'd try soft ones, going to her room every day to reminisce about my unrequited love, but she never spoke to me. Every time I expressed my feelings, she'd turn her head away, as if disgusted by even looking at me. By the end of the month, I was finally feeling a bit hopeless. I thought, forget it, a forced relationship wouldn't be sweet. I could only secretly admire her and not truly do anything. Maybe I should just return her and turn myself in. I understood that someone like Haley would never like me. She would always be the brightest star in the crowd, while I was just a dull background. Falling for Haley was too easy. When I first joined the literary club, I had to perform at a show. I was set to duet with a girl on piano and violin, but her boyfriend got jealous, threatening her the day before the performance. Left without a partner, I was at a loss. It was Haley who happened to pass by, picked up the violin and said, "Play, I'll accompany you." That performance was a success, and when the last note fell, the audience erupted in applause. Later, I learned Haley wasn't even part of our club. She was the student council president, just passing by and felt sorry for me. When I thanked her later, she merely nodded and left. To her, it was probably a minor moment, but for me, from that day on, she filled my vision entirely. When she graduated and started her own business, I joined her company, but her attitude towards me remained indifferent. Even now, after binding her at home, she wouldn't yield. I sighed, deciding to steal a few more glances at her tonight, and when I'd had enough, I'd let her go home. I didn't expect Haley to be awake this time. As soon as I reached the bedside, she grabbed my wrist. Just as I was terrified, Haley opened her eyes, and in the midnight silence, only my racing heartbeat and her hoarse voice filled the air. "Rocky, are you sick?" Maybe it was just my imagination, but I thought I saw a hint of disappointment in her eyes. I stammered and couldn't reply, and she sat up, rubbing her forehead. "You really want to sleep with me?" I nodded. "Of course. Why else would I bind her?" Haley looked at me for a long moment, as if the reluctant daughter of a wealthy family was finally conceding to her fate. "Well then, you can move over here tonight." But it's agreed. Only sleep, nothing else. Happiness came too suddenly. I nodded vigorously. "No other activities?" "Fine. I was already here. How far could that be?" Haley glanced at me, slightly disdainful. "Get your pillow." That night marked the beginning of me finally sharing a bed with Haley. Every day, I could happily watch her, feeling as if my dreams had turned pink. Unfortunately, every morning, Haley woke up with a dark expression. Perhaps her body had complied, but her heart still felt humiliated. Another month passed, and Haley grew a bit annoyed. From being indifferent, she began to manage everything I did, even my work hours. I don't know why, but the company operated smoothly without her, as if no one noticed the boss was missing. In fact, it seemed to be growing. Recently, they even hired a batch of interns. The intern assigned to me, named Serena, was still an undergrad, 168 centimeters tall, with a cute mole on her high nose. When she looked down, I could see her long, straight eyelashes. She was sweet-talking me, calling me bro, and asking questions after work. I admit I'm a huge fan, and though my heart belonged to Haley, who could resist such a beauty? So, I ended up coming home, half an hour late for the first time. That day, when I returned, Haley's face was darker than the evening sky. When I brought her dinner, she plopped down on my lap, burying her head in my shoulder. I thought she'd finally come around, but just as I was happily lost in thought, she suddenly said, "Why do you smell like perfume?" I froze, recalling Serena's faint, refreshing scent. I must have brushed against her while teaching her how to use the printer. Did Haley have a dog's nose? How could she smell that? Seeing I didn't reply, Haley sneered. "Every day you say how much you like me, but not even 3 months in, you're bored and have a woman outside, right? Sure enough, once you have it, you won't cherish it. Rocky, I see through you. Wait, what's with this jealous tone?" I hurried to explain. No, the intern is just very eager to learn. I only showed her how to use the printer. Can't even use a printer? Is Hwaya's hiring standards so low now? Haley's expression darkened even more, and she pulled out a phone from under the pillow. "What's her name? I'll have HR fire her." I widened my eyes. "Wait, where did you get a phone? Didn't I confiscate yours? Why didn't she call for help?" Haley paused for half a second, a blank look on her face. Then she tossed the phone aside and pinned me down on the bed. The light cascaded over her collarbone, the shadows mesmerizing me, making me forget about the phone entirely. Haley sat on top of me, a smile at the corner of her mouth that sent chills down my spine. She took a silver chain from her ankle and tied my hands to the bedpost, coldly stating, "You came home half an hour late. I have to punish you." After that, Haley and I developed this ambiguous relationship. She never spoke about it, so I never asked. I was afraid that the answer wouldn't be what I wanted. I had gotten used to pursuing her, and too much love can sap one's courage. Perhaps success in romance meant failure in work. The next evening, as I was finishing up, our team leader, Alice, leaned against my desk. I frowned slightly. Alice had always treated me with disdain, but ever since she learned I bought a house outright, she began to pester me. Her family was from the countryside, and buying a house locally on a salary was unrealistic, so she started harassing me. Considering she was half my superior, I had politely declined each time, but she clung to me like gum on a shoe. "Rocky, there's a new hot pot restaurant in the east side. How about you take me out for dinner tonight?" I felt exasperated and let a bit of it show. "Sorry, I have plans tonight." "What plans? Got a girlfriend?" I paused for a moment and nodded. "Yeah," but Alice wouldn't let up. "Who are you kidding? I've never seen your girlfriend. Are you feeling pressured to have dinner with me? Don't worry, I'm easy to get along with." "Excuse me, I need to leave." I couldn't take it anymore and tried to walk past her. Seeing I was unresponsive, Alice's face darkened. "Rocky, what are you so proud of? So you bought a house? I could buy one anytime I wanted. That dump you call a house is in the suburbs. I wouldn't even bother looking at it. If I buy, it'll be in the city center." Ignoring her, I kept walking. Just as I reached the elevator, she grabbed me again, ready to pick another fight. Suddenly, a slender, fair hand yanked her wrist away. Serena scoffed. "Jealous because someone bought a house? You could always sell yourself." "Oh, wait." She glanced Alice up and down, sneering. "With you looking like that, you'd probably flop." Alice's lips trembled with anger, but no matter how she struggled, she couldn't break free, and any insults were countered by Serena until Alice left in defeat, face pale. I turned to Serena. "Thanks a lot." Her earlier hostility and indifference vanished, replaced by a bright-eyed demeanor. "No problem, Rocky. If you're too nice to deal with her, I'll handle it for you. I'll drive you home. It's raining outside." I thought for a moment and nodded. "My car's old, so don't mind." Serena drove an old Honda, and as I buckled my seatbelt, I couldn't help but say, "Really, thank you for today, but Alice is petty. I'm worried she might target you next." Serena smiled. "Do I look scared of her?" She steered one-handed, her watch worth 10 of the car, and it was rumored among colleagues that she might be a wealthy heiress. Experiencing life as an intern, wealth can be concealed, but her relaxed elegance couldn't be faked. If she had connections, then maybe Alice wouldn't matter. I felt relieved. "But Rocky, going home so early, are you really seeing a girlfriend?" Serena glanced at me. "Well, not exactly a girlfriend." I didn't know how to describe my relationship with Haley. I couldn't say she was the one I had bound and had physical relations with, right? I just dodged the question. "A friend, I guess." Serena laughed. "That's good to hear. I thought I missed my chance." I couldn't deny I had noticed Serena's feelings. She came in as a management trainee, and the older employees feared she might take their positions, so they pushed her onto me. I had genuinely taken the time to teach her, and slowly, she became attached, finding countless reasons to visit my office. Even colleagues noticed and asked if she was pursuing me, but I liked Haley. No matter how beautiful the college girl was, I only appreciated her. I waved my hand. "Huaya doesn't allow office romances. Besides, you're 3 years younger. Don't waste your efforts on me." Yet Serena just smiled, saying nothing. When we reached the ground floor, before I could unbuckle my seatbelt, she leaned in closer. The familiar scent mingled in the air, carrying an unnameable tension. The seatbelt stuck. I didn't dare move. Moments later, she freed the seatbelt. "Rocky, how about inviting me up for tea?" Her eyes held undisguised anticipation. Perhaps due to the heat in the car, the warmth on my face wouldn't fade, and I awkwardly opened the car door. "Not today, maybe next time." "Thanks." Then I hurried up the stairs. I had planned my return home well, but this little episode made me 5 minutes late. I looked at Haley, who was staring down at me. Once a minute? Goodness, would this last until midnight? My mind raced, and I pushed her down, fuming. "Why are you scolding me? Do you know I was harassed at work today? How did you hire such people? What a mess." Haley froze, her brows furrowing. "Who harassed you?" I turned away. "Alice from marketing. She wouldn't leave me alone after learning about my house." Haley got out of bed and grabbed her phone. Seconds later, the call connected. Her voice sent chills down my spine. "Is there someone named Alice in marketing?" "Yeah, have her pack her things by tomorrow. Tell all our partner companies to cancel any collaborations with her." After hanging up, she turned to me. "Why didn't you tell me about this sooner?" I mumbled. "What's our relationship? What use would it be to tell you?" Haley fell silent, her expression darkening. Suddenly, I recalled what Serena had asked me today, and I lowered my gaze. "Haley, what exactly are we? What do you think of this?" She was willing to play play this confinement game with me, and we'd had countless intimate moments, but she never defined our relationship. Maybe today I was just in a bad mood, and my mind was all jumbled. Perhaps Haley was just bored and looking for fun with me. If she truly liked me, why was everything always so ambiguous? I was too fond of her to have the courage. So what about her? Did she simply not like me? My throat suddenly felt bitter, and I tossed the silver chain that Haley had ripped off earlier onto the bed. You don't have to answer right away. If our feelings are mutual, I hope to see you at home tomorrow after work. If you're not interested, then you can leave tomorrow. With that, I awkwardly turned and left. I didn't want to clarify things face to face, but just looking at her made me timid. I couldn't help but think that someone like Haley would always have admirers chasing her, and many would be far more qualified than I. What could she possibly like about me? I couldn't bear the thought of her rejecting me to my face. That night, we didn't speak again, and the house was eerily quiet. Only the faint sound of the silver chain could be heard from the bedroom. I didn't sleep a wink. The next day, I had no mind for work. Unfortunately, it was an especially busy day. The boss had us contacting clients. I spent the whole day making calls, feeling dizzy, and finally relaxed only after clocking out, dragging my exhausted body to the door. I took a deep breath and unlocked it. I wanted to delay coming back for a while, but each minute of delay made me restless. In the end, I decided to return. After all, whether I stretch my neck or withdraw, it's still the same. Better a quick pain than a long one. Besides, Haley might not completely dislike me. In the dead of night, we had shared countless intimate moments where she would whisper my name in my ear. At least in those moments we held each other, I felt she loved me. I closed my eyes and stepped inside. The living room was silent. You could hear a pin drop. A chill ran through my body, and I rushed into the bedroom in 3 quick steps. The bedroom was empty. Only a dim silver chain lay on the bed. The blanket was folded neatly, the sheets smooth as if no one had ever slept there. The warm evening light illuminated the floating dust in the air. I stood alone in the fractured shadows, slowly pressing my hand against my heart. Strange, there were no wounds, so why did it hurt so much? It was as if that delicate thing had shattered inside, leaving behind a cold mess all around. Well, a voice suddenly emerged from my chaotic mind. Having been able to sleep with her for so long was already a benefit to me. What more could I ask for? Originally, we weren't from the same world. I reached for that silver chain. The chain had long lost its warmth, feeling like a block of ice in my hand. Haley never appeared again. She didn't even return to the office. I thought she might be avoiding me out of embarrassment. Every time I called, the number was disconnected. I couldn't reach her. I lay alone on the bed where she had slept for 3 months, and when dawn broke, I blocked all her contacts. Even though I tried hard to convince myself, I still couldn't move on. Those late-night embraces and warmth turned out to be false. From beginning to end, I felt like a clown. Haley had never liked me, not even a little. The summer rain came suddenly, pouring down as soon as I got off work. I didn't bring an umbrella and couldn't get a taxi, so I walked home in the rain. Passing by a school, I saw a young couple in love. The boy took off his school uniform to cover the girl's head, and they dashed into the rain together. So nice. 2 people in the rain is romantic. Alone, I felt like a fool. The rain poured harder, and I could barely open my eyes. But that was fine. I couldn't tell if it was rain or tears on my face. It was embarrassing. I wasn't a teenager anymore, yet here I was, heartbroken and looking like a mess. As I wiped my face, a sudden honk came from behind. A black G-Wagon broke through the rain, and Serena jumped out, shielding her head with her hand. "Rocky, get in." After drying my hair with the clothes Serena handed me, I looked at the logo in silence. If I remembered correctly, I had seen this piece in the store last month. An LV plaid hoodie worth 17,000 yuan, almost equivalent to 2 months of my salary. I looked at Serena, who seemed unbothered. "Do you know how much this costs?" Serena glanced and replied, "I don't know. I just grabbed it at the mall last week. Damn rich people. They can casually pick up a 17,000 yuan LV, while I have to check the price for a pair of underwear. What's wrong with you?" She glanced at me, the smile on her lips fading. "Did someone bully you?" I forced a smile. No one bullied me. Just a breakup." After a moment, I added, "Not exactly a breakup, more like a confession that got rejected." Serena didn't say anything. After a while, she reached out to touch me. Then she's the one missing out. "Rocky, check my pants pocket pocket," she suddenly said. There was something bulging in her pocket. I felt a bit awkward, trying not to touch her as I pulled it out. It was a small blue velvet box. Opening it revealed a tie clip, decorated with a circle of small diamonds. Exquisite and beautiful. "I saw this the other day and thought it suited you." She smiled at me. I was startled. No, this is too expensive. I can't accept it. Just take it as a thank you gift for teaching me these days. Don't refuse me. I'm resigning tomorrow to go back to school." I was stunned. In the end, I stuffed the tie clip back to her. "Thank you for the thought. No need for gifts. Will you come back after?" As soon as the words left my mouth, I realized I'd asked a foolish question. Someone like Serena, a rich girl, must have family businesses. How could she possibly work at someone else's company? Sure enough, she looked at me and said, "Rocky, are you going to miss me? But I'll have to go home to work after graduation, so I probably won't come back to Hawaii." "Oh, I see." I felt a bit melancholic. The time spent with Serena was joyful. She was the kind of person who made you happy quickly. The thought of not seeing her in the future made my heart ache a little. "But I'll still come to find you to hang out," she winked at me. After reaching downstairs, Serena escorted me into the hallway. As I was about to leave, she called out to me. I looked up and Serena gently clipped the tie clip onto my tie. She carefully adjusted my tie. We were so close that I could count every long eyelash she had. For a moment, my heart skipped a beat. Just a step away was the pouring rain outside, and in this tiny space, it was just the two of us. Serena looked up at me, and that's when I noticed her eyes were alight, honey-colored amber. "Rocky, Her words were interrupted by a sharp voice. "What are you two doing?" I turned around sharply and saw Haley standing in the rain with an umbrella. She was wearing a tailored black suit dress, the lenses of her gold-rimmed glasses glinting with a hint of mockery. "No wonder you don't answer my calls or reply to my texts. Turns out you have someone new." Haley's thin lips curled into a cold smile mixed with disdain and anger. "Rocky, you're something else. You say you like me so much, but do you say that to everyone?" I was taken aback. Then anger surged within me as I clenched my fists and said, "Haley, are you out of your mind? You left first, and now you're blaming me? Do you think if you don't like me, I have to be a sycophant around you?" Haley frowned. "I left because my dad was hospitalized in the US. Called you, but you didn't answer, and you didn't reply to my texts. Isn't it because you've taken a liking to her?" She pointed at Serena. I was stunned. That day, it seemed a strange number had called me several times, but I had been receiving numerous scam calls after my information leaked, so I thought it was just another scam and didn't answer. But I truly hadn't received any texts. After a moment of thought, I quickly pulled out my phone. Sure enough, there was a message in the spam folder from that unknown number. "Rocky, my dad had an accident in the US, and I need to go see him. I've thought carefully about what you said. I'm not just playing around with you, but I don't want to discuss my feelings for you in such a hasty way through a text. I want to tell you in person. Wait for me." I stood there in a daze, staring at the message without moving. "Did you change your number?" After a long pause, I said numbly, "That number is out of service. This is my secondary number." I gripped my phone tightly, flustered as I explained. I didn't see it. The unknown number was filtered into the spam folder. But Haley just looked at me coldly. "Rocky, I was supposed to stay with my dad for another month, but as soon as he was out of danger, I came back. Do you know how I've spent these past 2 weeks? I wanted to message you on Facebook, but I found out you deleted and blocked me. I texted you, but you never replied. I was desperate. I rushed back on the last flight, thinking it might just be a misunderstanding, but..." She glanced at Serena, a low, mocking laugh escaping her lips. "Turns out there was no misunderstanding. You just have someone new." "It's a misunderstanding, No misunderstanding?" Haley said. "Then tell me, what were you just doing?" "Rocky, I've only been gone for less than half a month." I couldn't find the words. In that moment, I couldn't deny the ambiguity in the air. Haley didn't look at me again and turned to get into her car. The black Rolls-Royce sped away through the rain, never to stop again. "Rocky, is she the one you confessed to and failed?" Serena asked softly. I nodded glumly, taking off my tie clip to give it to her. "Here's your gift back. I really can't accept it, but thank you anyway." Serena was taken aback, a faint bitter smile curling at the corners of her mouth. "You're really heartless. Well then, I'll take it back this time. I hope you won't reject me next time." I was lost in thought, unable to discern what she was saying. Then I said goodbye and went upstairs. The room was dark on that overcast evening. I sat alone by the bed, staring at the message Haley sent me. She said she liked me. It turns out she liked me too. I slowly buried my face in my knees, but I had pushed her away. I admit my heart wavered for a moment when I saw Serena. I thought there are always people who like me. If Haley doesn't like me, then I won't like her either. What kind of feelings did she have when she wanted to contact me across the ocean but didn't dare? I covered my face. I'm such a fool. I ruined everything. The next day, Haley returned to the company. I wanted to see her, but I was also afraid of seeing her. When I accidentally ran into her in the elevator, I was at a loss for words, but she walked past me, not even glancing my way. She really seemed to want nothing to do with me anymore. I spent several days agonizing over how to apologize to her. Just as I was contemplating whether to barge into her office and beg for her forgiveness, a colleague nudged me with a knowing look. "Rocky, did you know our boss is getting married soon?" I stopped what I was doing. "What?" "Boss Haley, the rich beauty, has finally been caught." He eagerly handed me his phone. "The news just came out. She's getting engaged to the third son of Sam's club." In the photo, the man was tall and handsome, and the woman beside him was exquisite, truly a perfect match. Even I had to admit they were well matched. All the guys in the company are going to be heartbroken. But hey, with Haley's background, how could she settle for some princess falling for a poor guy story? She's definitely looking for a marriage of equals. He kept talking, but I couldn't hear anything anymore. I suddenly stood up, startling my colleague. "What are you doing?" Without answering, I walked straight to Haley's office. I needed to ask her directly. Just as I reached the office door, a girl walked out. She was dressed in an expensive-looking suit, exuding confidence, smiling as she intertwined her fingers with Haley's. "I'll come find you tomorrow. Don't forget to eat well," the girl said. Haley, behind her, smiled warmly, softly replying, "Okay, be careful on your way back. Message me when you get home." This was the first time I'd seen her so gentle. Except in bed, she had never been like this with me. I froze in place, staring blankly. The man noticed me and asked with some confusion, "Haley, who's this?" Haley glanced at me, her eyes devoid of warmth. "Just an unimportant person." With that, she took the man's arm and walked past me. I stood there, frozen as if my feet were encased in ice. It felt like all the blood in my heart had been drained. How could it feel like my heart wasn't even beating? An unimportant person, huh? That's right. Wasn't I just an unimportant person? Until a colleague passed by and patted me, saying, "Rocky, what's wrong? Looking for Boss Haley? She just sent her fiancé off. Maybe you can come back later." I lowered my head, lightly touching my chest, trying to force a smile that I knew looked awkward and forced. "It's nothing," I whispered. "I'm not looking for her anymore." The next day, I submitted my resignation. My boss and colleagues tried to persuade me to stay, asking why I wanted to leave when I was doing so well. I remained silent for a long time before saying, "Because the reason to stay here is gone." I joined this company for Haley. Now that she was engaged, it was time for me to leave. On the day I moved out with my cardboard box, I ran into Haley at the elevator. She was still in her professional outfit, looking like a high and mighty flower, completely unrecognizable from the person who had once been tied to my bed by a silver chain. She glanced at the box in my hands, her tone emotionless. "You're leaving?" I nodded, not saying a word. "Rocky, you really are something," she suddenly smiled, though the smile didn't reach her eyes. I had no idea what she meant by that. I didn't want to guess anymore. Things had reached this point. She wouldn't give up her engagement for me now. What was the point of lingering? It would only make me look worse. With my last bit of dignity, I said, "Wishing you both a happy life together." But Haley just stared at me, silent. The elevator arrived quickly, and I turned to leave. But her gaze remained intense and unyielding, not fading away. The news of Haley's engagement spread quickly, even making it to the local newspaper. In the photos, they looked like a perfect couple. Anyone would call it a match made in heaven. The engagement date was set for June. I didn't know how I got through those days. I frantically sent out resumes to keep myself busy, not wanting to be idle. Because when I was idle, I would think of her. The bedroom where she used to sleep was locked, turned into a forbidden area in my home. All the bedding that we had once tangled in was thrown away, as if to discard those memories along with them. During this time, Serena often came to find me, either saying a new bubble tea shop opened in the east and she wanted to try it, or asking if I wanted to go to a new omakase place in the west. At first, I refused her each time, even awkwardly explaining that I wasn't looking to date anyone recently. But each time, she just smiled and replied, "That's okay. I'll come back next time. Maybe you'll say yes then." Time after time, I felt guilty for rejecting her, so I eventually went out with her a few times. I had to admit that there was a magical charm about young girls. Being with her made me feel much lighter. When she held a candied hawthorn stick and asked me to take a bite, I genuinely forgot my sadness. But when I returned home alone at night, those memories seemed to cling to me like a shadow, making it impossible not to recall her as soon as I closed my eyes. One day, Serena invited me again, suggesting we go feed the seagulls at the beach since there were many around lately. Walking barefoot on the sandy beach, the salty sea breeze felt refreshing, and I suddenly felt much lighter. "Rocky, what kind of woman do you like?" Serena asked, tilting her head. I thought for a moment. "Well, someone who looks great in a suit, seems very serious, but is actually a bit of a tease. Someone I can talk a lot with, and it would be perfect if she wore gold-rimmed glasses." Before I could finish, a face popped into my mind. Not far away, a couple was drawing hearts in the sand, laughing and playfully chasing each other. Eventually, tired from their antics, they sat together on the beach. The girl suddenly asked, "What if we break up in the future? Then I'll just win you back," the boy replied. "What if you can't?" He thought for a moment and said, "Then I'll keep chasing you until I do." "Rocky, actually Serena seemed to want to say something, but my mind was a jumbled mess, and I couldn't process anything. Suddenly, the church bells rang in the distance. It hit me. Today was Haley's engagement day. She would be getting a ring from another man, pledging her love for him forever. She would be intimate with someone else, sharing a bed. She would completely leave my world, and we would have nothing to do with each other from now on. The sea breeze ruffled my hair, and I felt an indescribable emotion fill my heart. At that moment, I really wanted to see Haley. Once the thought entered my mind, I couldn't control it any longer. I turned to Serena and said, "Sorry, I have something urgent to attend to. I need to go." Serena stared at me for a moment, her expression complex. "Are you going to find Haley?" I nodded. "Yeah." Serena looked down, and after a long silence, she gave a helpless smile. "It's hard to get a taxi from here to the church. I'll drive you." I didn't know what to say, so I awkwardly thanked her. Serena sighed. "Don't mention it. If she treats you badly in the future, just come find me." I was anxious the whole way. I was afraid I'd be late and miss the ceremony. Serena drove me to the church entrance. I got out and rushed inside. I had never run this fast in my life, but I wanted to see her as soon as possible. I pushed open the church doors. The pastor stood in white, and beside him, Haley was bathed in the soft light filtering through the rose windows. I stopped, breathless, eyes wide. There was no one in the church except for the pastor and Haley. Not even that man from earlier. Had I arrived too early? My heart raced. Had I come too late and they had already finished? In my confusion, Haley suddenly smiled with relief. She turned to the pastor and said, "My fiancé is here. Let's begin." I was dumbfounded. "Wait, aren't you getting engaged to the Sam's Club heir today?" Haley walked over and took my hand. "I'm only in a partnership with him. He didn't want to enter into a loveless marriage, so he asked me to invest in his company and help him break free from family control. He pretended to be my fiancé in front of you." "You tricked me?" Haley chuckled lightly. "Otherwise, would you have come to find me?" "Rocky, I've been waiting for you to come to me, but you didn't even want to clarify things after resigning. If I hadn't done this, would you have come to find me? Then why didn't you just come to find me?" I was both angry and amused. "Why should I?" Haley looked down at me from above. "You were the one flirting with another woman in front of me. If I went to find you, wouldn't that be humiliating? At least you didn't disappoint me." I was both furious and amused. "What if I hadn't come today?" Haley was silent. After a long while, she said, "Then I would have thought of another way." She took my hand and pulled out a delicate ring embedded with diamonds, handing it to me. "Consider this a loan. You'll have to buy me a new one later." The pastor smiled at us. Haley looked serious. "Rocky, you still owe me, and I'm sorry. But I also owe you something. I really like you. I noticed you a long time ago, but my dad's affair when I was a child caused my mom to become depressed and eventually take her own life. So I've always been resistant to relationships." I was stunned, realizing Haley had never been in a relationship all these years. Not only had she not dated, but it seemed she hadn't even had a close male friend. For a while, people speculated whether Haley liked women. If she hadn't been so hard to approach, I wouldn't have come up with the idea of tying her up and taking her home. I was terrified that my partner would betray me, and I was also afraid I'd become the kind of person I despise, like my father. But now I've figured it out. I'm certain I won't betray you, and I will always treat you well, keeping you by my side forever. So, will you marry me? With tears in my eyes, I trembled as I slipped the ring onto her ring finger. "I will." 2 months later, Haley and I got married. She was quite eager, worried that if we didn't marry soon, I'd end up with some other woman. On the day of the wedding, Serena also showed up. She looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes and a displeased expression. "Rocky, what makes her better than me? She's just an older woman. I'm younger and more beautiful. I smiled and held Haley's hand. But I like her. Serena helplessly pulled out a box from her pocket. Here's the tie clip from before. You didn't accept it then, so now it's your wedding gift. You can accept it, right? I reached for the box. Thank you. Don't mention it. If she treats you badly in the future, just come find me. I'll wait for you. Well, you can wait all you want, Haley scoffed. You'll be waiting forever. After the wedding, Haley moved into my house. I asked her if she was crazy for not living in her own villa, instead choosing my less than 100 square meter small apartment. Haley said nothing, walked into the bedroom. After a moment, she came out with that silver chain wrapped around her wrist. I remember. You still owe me 5 hours, she said playfully. Then let's get started. Wait, I said nervously. What's the past got to do with this? Haley pushed me down. Say one more word, and there'll be an extra round. The end. If you like Kitten's story, please follow and like it. Updated every morning at 9 a.m.